Welcome to the American Diversity Report podcasts, where we interview change makers and diverse innovators. I'm Deborah Levine, editor of the American Diversity Report, and your host. And with me today is Tiffany Warren. Tiffany R. Warren is the EVP, Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for Sony Music Group, expanding equity and inclusion activities and policies across MSG global recorded music, publishing, and corporate divisions. She has been championing diverse professionals in the creative industries for over 24 years and is the founder of AdColor. Welcome, Tiffany.
Thank you so much, Deborah. I'm so honored to be here.
Oh, what a pleasure to have you. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in all of this.
Sure. I am a Bostonian, so I'm from Boston, which, if many don't know, is the seat of a lot of things that happened in America, a lot of turning points, particularly the American Revolution. And certainly there was a huge civil rights movement within Boston that created abolitionists and played a role in where we are now in terms of civil rights. And so growing up amongst that and knowing those stories piqued my interest pretty early on about what made me so different. Why was there specific remits to create opportunities for me that were tied to, it seemed like in my young mind, to the color of my skin. And so very early on, probably 2.5, 3 years old, is when I caught the bug of, I didn't have terms for it, but community activism. And it started with supporting and just being there for the kids in my class that I saw or felt were getting bullied. So, at 3, I was kind of looking at that and understanding the mechanics of why they were getting bullied. And it was just very deeply troubling to me. So much so that it made its way into my progress reports that I still have to this day. One particularly well-known progress report literally said, Tiffany likes the quiet ones. Tiffany, likes to hear the same story over again. She raises her hand when the story has a particular cultural influence. So even then I was like, yeah, tell the story where I'm reflected, So for a long time, I didn't access those reports. And I remember getting into diversity and looking back and trying to find clues as to, why I pursued this career. And it was there. It was all there and in the scrapbook that my mom maintained for 25 years. So, it's really that deeply embedded in me to do this work. I think often people approach things looking at it as a position. And for me, it is a true passion and a gift to be able to defend people's dreams, because I'm a direct result of the work of Martin Luther King. Every program that I've been in is because of, what he pushed and others pushed in the 50s and 60s. So I'm very well aware of, my place on the timeline of equity. And I'm going to do all I can during this time to push it forward.
Good for you. Passionate indeed. My goodness. It's a pleasure to hear all of that, especially these days when it's so much needed.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you're, a diversity officer, you're often looked at as a beacon. And when you think about a physical beacon, it is lit from within. And so, I had the privilege, along with my team, of executing AdColor Everywhere, which is a conference that we put on every year through my not-for-profit, AdColor. And a speaker in particular, Jovian Zane, just kind of knocked me off my feet with this idea of, if you don't take care of the light in you, the light on you will kill you. And so for me, it's about figuring out how to keep that light within lit for others, so that I won't be crushed by it, because this work is really hard. And I used to not admit it. Yeah, I used to not admit it. And now I'm just very comfortable saying it's hard. Because people tell me it's hard now. So I'm like, oh, wait, you know it's hard? Okay, now I can say it's hard. Like, now I can admit to it. So now I'm just saying it all the time. I'm like, woo, this work is hard. But I used to like try to make it look easy because I didn't want to let anyone in on how difficult it was to try to be a change agent within corporate America, where we haven't even really resolved the issues around race and inequity in society. So now I feel like I can exhale a little bit and talk about some of the, ups and downs of doing this work.
There are definitely ups and downs and all around. But it's wonderful work, and it's very rewarding in its own way, even on the bad days when it goes really challenging, right? So we definitely need people like you, and we need you to take care of yourself so that you don't get burned out by that beacon and keep on going, right? Because you're doing great work, and here we're talking about the work. It's so much. What are your priorities? How do you organize all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I organize my thoughts in a couple of ways. And I think, you know, for me, I'm always going into situations, whether it's professional or otherwise, identifying what the problem is, right? Like, what truly is the problem? Because sometimes it's not what you think. And right now, the environment is kind of volatile. And what people want is vision. So it's trying to figure out and identify the problem in that space of volatility and bring people to a vision. And then really identify the root cause. Because when you think about it, I just had this incredible conversation with my friend Christy, who heads up DE&I for an advertising agency called Anomaly. And she said something to me that she probably said it and didn't even realize like it was a moment, but she said that, you can pump fresh water through dirty pipes, but the water still comes out dirty. So you actually have to figure out, you could, pump fresh ideas into a company, but if the systems within the company are still not fixed and appropriate for innovation, what comes out on the other end is still, is still ripe with inequality and ineffectiveness. So that's really about identifying the root cause within those particular systems and trying to fix it. Um, and then really for me, tapping into the source of empathy within a company, working for a music entertainment company, we overproduce empathy because we have to be in touch with our artists so that we can make them the best that they can be, and they can deliver this culture breaking, culture changing work through music and through song and through their art. So there is empathy, but the empathy probably has been sort of targeted or focused on the artist. And now, in my role, I'm asking that can we borrow some of that empathy and spread it around within the company. It's okay to look to the left and right of you and figure out ways to support each other so that, we're definitely supporting the external talent, but we're also supporting the internal talent. So yeah, I think that empathy piece is really, really key. And then strategy, having a strategy. I think when you have a vision, but you have no formal framework to execute that vision, it just becomes, an aimless sort of task. So definitely creating a framework that everyone can point to and drill down. And particularly when you're in a company where there's multiple types of companies, as a record holding company is, every single label has a different personality. So what strategy can you develop that they can drill down from that makes sense for them and that you can be totally flexible about? And then finally, you have to think about like, what's the sacrifices that are going to be made? Because we often say, this person is not a good cultural fit, right? Or this is how we've always done it. But think about it in a different way, in the sense of saying, this person could be a cultural fixer. How can we bring this person in to fix our culture, not fit in? And I said to a group of our Sony Music University students the other day, and all their faces were bright and shiny and they're excited, and I can't wait till they get into our company. But I said to them, you really are, our future. I came up I'm a Gen Xer, and we literally were trained to fit in, to stand out, if that makes sense. Fit
Oh, yeah.
in, you know, wear the navy blue suit, even though it scratches you all day. Um, don't speak out of turn in meetings. There's a hierarchy of conversation. And just know that for 4 years, you're not even part of that hierarchy. Like these are things that were just like either observed or through osmosis, we learned. And so I said, you guys are the generation where you actually are told to stand out, to fit in. It's the complete opposite. And so when you have those multi-generations in a company, imagine the clash, but not in a negative way. Imagine the learning that takes place. Because I've learned the most, I have to say, about confidence in the workplace, to be completely transparent, from millennials, because they have it in droves. I was like, let me borrow some of that. so, so yeah. So I think, there's definitely like a process to create change. But there's also needs to be a willingness to be empathetic and to sacrifice and to not just flush clean water through old pipes. Like, let's clean out the pipes, let's clean out the system, so that we can get fresh water and fresh ideas.
Many times when I interview, diversity professionals, topics of gender and race come up, but not often generation like that. And yet it is so key, isn't it?
It is. I
As
think
someone,
generation is really key. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
as someone who is a boomer, and I see all of these different generations. Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's like a little universe is all lined up, ready to come on board, and demanding in many ways to be on board in their own way. What do you think is going to happen when these new generations take over?
Yeah, it's funny. I guess the way that I try to be the glue when I have conversations is that I say I save like a traditionalist. I what is it? I socialize like a boomer. I have my crew. I'm very decidedly a Gen Xer in 100 ways, and I can go down that list, but I actually feel like I physically feel like a millennial. I'm not even going to touch Generation Alpha, which is my niece's generation, because they are a complete and unique unique generation. And they were named appropriately because she is our family CEO, our chief everything officer. It's just all flows around her, Generation Alpha. But no, in all honesty, we're seeing the impact of that. But it's interesting because COVID kind of like paused it a bit. It paused it a bit. And it'll restart as we open up. But you were starting to see some of that clashing, some of that, I don't know if the word is resentment, but there was a stickiness between Gen X and millennials. And millennials, just from terminology, we're continuing to get a bad rap. But actually, when you look at a lot of the innovation and a lot of the impact on culture, it has really come from the new generation up. I've seen this unequivocal innovation and confidence, and hubris to make change immediately. Time is a trigger for them. You say the word time and they're like, oh, I don't have time for that. We have time. You want time? Time is a trigger. They want to see action now. They want accountability now. So I'm a little nervous about Generation Alpha, because if the millennials are sort of time is a trigger, then it's going to be interesting to see what their trigger is. But because it is a trigger for them, we're seeing an acceleration of DE&I in ways that we've never have. And I definitely attribute that to the Gen Xers that raised the millennials, and the millennials are now marching for a better world.
Tell us a little bit of the details of what you mean that you've not seen it before.
I think just because my career has now spanned 24 plus years, and the acceleration of my discipline has been exponential in the last 3 years versus the last 24. So I have to only think it's the coming of age and the maturation of the millennial, the millennial generation into the workplace. Most companies are, in some cases, 53% or more millennial, right? The smaller numbers are traditionalists and boomers, and mainly boomers, I believe. And then the next largest group are Gen X. And then now we're seeing where it used to be 30% or 25%. Now it's 53% millennials. So they're changing the landscape of corporate America as well as society.
Wow. It's time to put on our seatbelts, huh?
I had my seatbelt on a while ago. I saw it coming because I managed an internship program that were primarily millennials, and I saw it coming. Every summer, I got a focus group and a crash course on what was coming, and I was really hopeful. And it turns out, they are every bit of what I thought they were. So again, I'm super excited that their numbers are growing and that they're coming into leadership, because it really is making an impact.
Can you tell us one item in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space that they're really passionate about, that you see them moving forward really quickly?
Transparency. Big
I
time.
see.
Big time. Transparency. Transparency. I don't know how I can it's just transparency. So I do think that they're making impact in other areas, but that's one of the biggest. You're seeing more specificity on engagement surveys. You're seeing data being shared in ways that it never has. And in doing that, it allows us to have a benchmark so that we know how we're getting better. And then also our employees or our internal talent support us in getting there. Because typically wasn't revealed. And so there was only a small group of people who really had a chance to help change that. So now that it's more transparency, you went from having a group of people that maybe numbered in the like 10 or 12 to sometimes the full company, 6,000, 75,000. Everybody feels like they can contribute because now they have the data, the information, and they can say, oh, well, this is what we need to focus on. So that's what I think the biggest impact has been.
Well, it is different, isn't it, to have instead of a sort of elite class dealing with it, being open to everybody, and everyone has a say and will say.
And it's also bringing along the leadership. I know, at Sony Music, inclusion and diversity and equity has been a number one key priority for Rob Stringer, who I report directly to. But it's been a key priority for him since he, was appointed chairman and CEO. I mean, our conversations have been really in depth about, what is the end result of this, of what we're doing in DE&I. And it's actually the end result is, not only creating a more equitable company, but music unites us. Music has such a strong impact on the world. You think about things that you may forget as a child, memories or whatever, but you hear a song and it's like you're in that room again, and you can smell all the smells, and you can place all the people that were there. That's the power of music. And so if that does that for our collective human memory, that's a really powerful responsibility. And so on the flip side, we have to do everything we can within our company to keep pouring into that. I just think it's an awesome and a huge responsibility to be able to bring that and do that for the music industry as well as for SMG.
Wow. And how does your AdColor nonprofit fit into all of that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, the way that it's fit into my life is that I always say that I think it saved me from being a creative, even though being a creative is amazing, because I think secretly I've always wanted to be a creative. But certainly when I thought about the idea, I was only a manager at the time. I didn't have, operational or relational or even executive power. I just had this idea. And what I knew from my days as an inroads intern and just growing up in Boston and being involved in so many different leadership groups is there's nothing as powerful as an idea whose time has come. And I really felt like it was AdColor's time. And so I had the conversations I needed to have and gained a coalition that helped me launch it in 2005. And then subsequently we had our first award show in 2007. And we really just wanted to be an award show. And then it morphed into so much more because of the loving hands of people who believed in my vision, in some cases loved it even more than me, if that's possible. And so here we are in 2021, and I'm in a new industry, and I'm adding that industry to AdColor along with tech and advertising and marketing and media. And the main thorough line is to support professionals of color in highlighting their achievement and also creating a network and a community that supports them, because often we're in companies where we're one of none or one of three. So creating a community that comes together every year where you're in a room where you're the majority is really powerful on many levels. And so, AdColor fits in because it's a gathering place for best practices, not only just people, but best practices and companies that are doing really well, but also companies that want to join AdColor to hold themselves accountable to do very well. So it's been quite a ride, and it's getting even more interesting and better. And so if we do nothing more, just having an archive of the experiences of people of color in different creative industries, honoring people from when they enter their career at the rising star level to when they're being more reflective. I've been taught to say things like being more reflective at the lifetime achievement level. Because in the past, I said things of like when they're at the end of their career, and I was like, that's morbid. So they're being more reflective. And someone from the boomer community helped me with my languaging, so thank you. Being more reflective, and so we honor the whole, every part of your career. And so someone who's a rising star gets to be inspired by someone who's in the lifetime achievement category and can kind of map it out, because I think early on you talked about like what's that roadmap look like, or map it out, like to be able to do that and see where you can go is really powerful. So that's how it fits in. And so now we have a specific group called AdColor Music that we're super excited about and have been ready to build.
Amazing. You've been busy.
Mm-hmm. I think my busiest job is being an aunt, but I think people will look at the other stuff, but that's a full-time job right there.
Talk to me.
Absolutely.
Well, we women, we have family responsibilities and loves and passions, and I always call women the glue of society.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, they really are. I mean, it's interesting because it depends on which kind of glue, because if it's Gorilla Glue, then you'll never leave your parents' side or your mom's side. I'd like to think of the kind of glue on a Post-it note, like we're glued together, but at some point I'm gonna want to leave the nest. So, but yeah, I understand what you mean. I'm being funny, but no, it definitely, and I do think that there's certain aspects of society, if not respected and revered, speak to what's going on in that particular group or that particular society. I do love, in just my opinion, from a media standpoint, and having seen the landscape in my 46 years, but the roses and the stories and the support that women are getting. Organizations like Makers, Time did this incredible issue, I think it was 2 years ago, called The Firsts. So people who did things first, or women who did things first. That was remarkable. And certainly you had a naysayer who was like, well, everyone's always doing something first. I'm like, well, when you think about parity and how the McKinsey study said that it's going to take 95 years for Black parity, in corporate America if we do nothing, or at this rate, excuse me. But if we do everything that we're told to achieve Black parity, it'll be 25 years, which is still a
A
long
lot.
time away.
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah. So
But
you
it
think about that, like where we're at with the, with that universe, and then you start to see, um, the priority of DE&I, not only in corporate America but in society.
absolutely, absolutely. And to get back to the music industry in particular,
Sure.
what are the challenges along the way um, to achieve what we're looking for in DEI?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, today actually marks my 6-month anniversary at Sony Music Group and in the industry itself. I'm a lifelong music lover, but being in the business, in the industry, 6 months. And so, I have a good understanding, of our focus and what I've observed, but I'm also a transparent leader, who, most often leads from the back, like just watching sort of, what's going on and then identifying the gaps. And so, last year SMG launched a $100 million fund for social justice. That that launch was felt throughout not just the music industry, but it's something that those of us who were in advertising took note of because it was so substantial and it was so incredible. And it really was to deliver on the overall global commitment to take action against inequity and injustice around the world. And so we started funding immediately. We're actually on our third round of funding. And we have funded more than 300 organizations internationally, because we created global task force to address and highlight and identify organizations that were both regional and local and national, so that we had coverage across the board. And then this month we sent out funding to 90 plus new organizations. Australia, Canada, Latin America, New Zealand, and US. And I'm most proud, obviously, of, the voting campaign that we did that was, bipartisan. I wanted to say non-denominational because I still, as a Catholic girl, non-denominational was like a swear word growing up. It's like, no, you're Catholic. And I ended up going to a non-denominational church, and it's been pretty amazing. So I wear both hats. But that was what we were trying to accomplish with the voting, just to say that voting is important. Whatever you choose to be, whatever party line you are, just vote. And that was wildly successful and incorporated a lot of our artists. And I think that's kind of a new area of interest, is how do you incorporate artists into social justice, but also DE&I, but certainly give them their space to have a personal commitment to it. So it's a really exciting time because we're creating the building blocks for history, not just at Sony Music Group, but for music. So I wake up every day like, what are we going to do today? And Elle Magazine just recently named myself and other, change agents as the 50 most empowered women, and it's a great list. But the thing that I'm most proud of is, and I thought it was off the record. It was an interesting comment where I said, as I was building my team, I sent a note to my team as everybody was in place, and I said, hey guys, let's just make history together. No pressure. Love, Tiff. That was my note. And they opened up the article with it, and I was like, I love that. I love that. I hope every manager, sends a note to their team about making history big and small, because it feels like we're in that kind of time.
Absolutely. We are indeed making history as we speak, and people are listening, and they should know they are making history too. It is for everyone who is out there. The opportunity to make a difference is somewhere in your arena. Just take a look.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think people think that you have to have this really complicated, laborious, fact-checked strategy when it comes to DE&I. And in fact, you can do things big and small. I say, if you're in a meeting and someone is silenced and you know that they've been silenced, speak up and say, if, for example, Tiffany had something to say, you don't have to say much more than that. You don't have to be, you could, if you wanted to be confrontational, it's your prerogative. But I've been in situations where the education of the moment was more important than the correction of the moment, because I knew other people were watching and listening. And I also know the power of storytelling. So I'm like, okay, if they're going to retell this story, what are they going to say? So I try to make it so it's really not about, cancel culture, but like just calling people in. And sometimes if something happens in a meeting, I'll reach out to the person days after. Just, so I have a clear mind and I understand how I want the conversation to go. Because ultimately the end result is that we want a better culture. We don't want a culture where people are afraid to speak up. And so, yeah, I think that you can do things big and small to make changes.
I love it. I love it. How true. Every day you have an opportunity to make a difference in some
Absolutely.
small way, sometimes big ways. It's not like everything is small, but they do add up, don't they not? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about your work and the situation these days that you're challenged with?
Yeah, I think I'm always looking ahead. I'm always looking to the future. Definitely got my feet planted firmly in the present. But I just, I'm just really honored to be able to be a steward of change and equity within, Sony Music Group. And, we will continue the overall companies. They've had a longstanding commitment. Even before I came, I was like, how lucky am I that it's really not starting from scratch, but it's just kind of enhancing what they've already done. And, we're really going to focus on, 5 key areas, which is mobility and impact and leadership and equity and safety, and the things that you would think at the end of the day, because I often say, I do get these moments when I wake up and I go, my job is to convince people that I'm human, right? Like I'm not crazy, right? I'm not crazy. My job is to tell people that all men are created equal, right? And I have to do like in the mirror and like gut check. And even with that reality and that possibility around my job, I still walk out the house excited to be part of this overall transcript of equality in the world. So I'm good. I'll leave it at that.
I love it. I love it. And I'm so glad you're able to take the time to share all of that with us, your stories, your views, and how you see the future unfolding. Oh, my goodness. I hope that maybe later in the year, we can do this again to see what the world is like post COVID and how you have navigated it and what you think is coming next. Okay.
Absolutely. I'll come back 3 or 4 times if you want, Deborah.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
I'm honored to be here with you.
Oh, I'm just so thrilled to have this opportunity to meet you, to speak to you, and I know our audience is also. And if there's any website or anything like that that you'd like to mention where they can follow up this, where should they go?
Yeah, there's a couple. Definitely to keep up with what we're doing, and I'm happy to report that along with our Office of Philanthropy and Social Impact, we'll be creating a space where you can see all of what we're doing. But for now, you can visit sonymusicentertainment.com to look at all of our efforts across the board, and also see really fantastic things that our artists are doing. And then on the AdColor front, it's adcolor.org, ADCOLOR.org. And we invite everyone to participate in what we're building, and hope to see you at our conference in October. But thank you, Deborah. This was amazing.
Oh, thank you. I love it. And thank you, audience, for tuning in once again to the American Diversity Report podcasts. We'll see you soon again. Thank you both.